News time 9:02. The U.S. Coast Guard has joined the Jamaican Defense Force in looking for wreckage of a small plane that evidently flew on for hours after something rendered its pilot incapacitated.
Rochester real estate developer Lawrence Glazier and his wife Jane were flying to Naples, Florida, but something apparently went wrong yesterday. CBS's Jeff Pegues.
U.S. Air Defense was notified. Two fighter jets were scrambled. They were able to see the pilot slumped over at the controls until the windshield frosted over. It's a telltale sign of cabin decompression.
Aviation safety expert Joseph Sweeterman.
Something traumatic had to happen on board. Either we had a pressurization change, perhaps some sort of poisonous gas that knocked the pilots out.
Coast Guard Petty Officer Sabrina Labaresque.
We're working in close coordination with the Jamaican Coast Guard.
Gary Nunn, CBS News.
KYW News time 9:03. The fallout from the indictment of allegedly corrupt narcotics officers in July has hit a Philadelphia case. KYW's Kim Glovis has more.
Public Defender Bradley Bridge says his client Miguel Mendez has had a drug conviction against him dismissed and he will be released. That's because the officer involved was indicted. Bridge says this may be the first of many convictions reopened and dismissed because of corrupt testimony.
It's not clear what happened in any of these individual cases. Some people might very well have been guilty. A lot of people I know are not guilty. And the end result is that we could not have any confidence in a conviction based upon the testimony of any of these police officers, and it's for that reason that the Commonwealth is commendably agreeing that they should be reopened and dismissed.
102 convictions based on the testimony of one officer have already been dismissed. Bridge says take that number times 6, and that may be the number of convictions dismissed for the other 6 officers. Kim Glovis, KYW News Radio.
Law enforcement officials in Montgomery County say some people have been victimized by phone scammers who pose as representatives of the Sheriff's Department. KYW Suburban Bureau Chief Brad Siegel has the latest on that.
Sheriff Russell Bono says at least one victim has reported a loss of $600. Another couple from Washington, D.C. drove all the way to Norristown after getting a call, and a Pottstown couple nearly got scammed. He says scammers are telling people they owe money, then threaten them with arrest if they don't buy a Green Dot prepaid card and call them back with the card's numbers. Bono says scams like this can erode the public's trust.
Of course, the people that lose money, they're out that money, and I regret that, and that bothers me also. But it's confidence in law enforcement in general, and the Sheriff's Department in particular, that's very hard to get back.
He says the cases have been turned over to the DA's office and they hope they can get a break that leads them to the scammers. He says they never call anyone unless a warrant has already been issued. In Norristown, Brad Siegel, KYW News Radio.
KYW News time 9:05. A federal court bucked a trend set by 20 other courts this week when it upheld Louisiana's ban on same-sex marriage. KYW Community Affairs reporter Cherry Gregg explains it could push the U.S. Supreme Court to rule on marriage equality sooner than originally thought.
For the first time since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, a federal court has upheld a state ban on same-sex marriage, as well as its refusal to recognize gay marriages legally performed in other states.
There is still opposition to same-sex marriage out there.
Penn Law professor Kermit Roosevelt with analysis of the ruling.
It takes probably the most reasonable position it could have, which is this is a very significant change. Ordinarily, we like to let changes like that come about through the democratic process, and I don't see anything clear in the Constitution that says otherwise.
Roosevelt says the Fifth Circuit must rule before the case goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, but 32 states, both for and against same-sex marriage, have asked for the High Court to step in. Cherry Gregg, KYW News Radio.
KYW News time 9:06. Now